Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we have Nicholas Tomlinson joining us from First National Bank. I'm going to turn this over to you, Nicholas, but I just want to share that we do have the ability for you all to ask questions in the Q&A. I believe you can post in the chat also, and we can allow you to unmute yourself if you have any questions that you would like to ask in person, but virtually. That you can ask, by talking instead of just posting in the chat or the Q&A. But thank you, Nicholas, for joining us, and I'm going to turn this over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you having me on this afternoon. Like Bronwyn was saying, my name is Nick Tomlinson. I'm the branch manager of the FNBO branch. It's actually located inside of the LSC on campus. Been here just over 2 years, so love to be back on campus. Was an alma mater, so being able to be back on campus and help students out has been a blessing. So glad to be here. We're always a wealth of knowledge, so if you have any questions, even if you're not a customer of ours, that's okay. We are a resource on campus, so just know that. So if you have anything that pops up, just stop on by. We'll be more than happy to help you. Today, we are actually going to go over budgeting. So what you're going to see now is what I call the 50-30-20 budgeting method. So this is a budgeting method that is really beneficial. Kind of came out in the early 2000s, got popular, but it gives you kind of a framework to where to put your money, but then also how to get through day-to-day life without making it much of a struggle, so to speak. So without further ado, we'll dive into it. So the first one that you'll see is going to be, why does budgeting even matter, right? So you always want to have financial clarity, whether it's tuition, housing, expenses, right? You're in a new country. Something could be completely different than what it was at home. So how do we have that clarity around those financial expenses that are popping up? We want to build confidence, right? The more that we understand where our money is going and where we can spend it more wisely, it gives us that more independence, which is always a good thing. But also the other side is it reduces our stress, right? Money is a big stressor item in life. Unfortunately, it'll always be there, but the more you have, the more equipped you are, I'll say, to manage those the ebbs and flow of life, the easier it becomes, in all honesty. So there's always expert advice, right? The last one, Professor Lauren Paul, she's an adjunct professor, teaches accounting here. Track your spending. There's no judgment, no goals, just write it down, right? We have to start somewhere. Without building that financial foundation, on many of our life decisions will either be based on it or will be impacted. The better you are at budgeting now, the better off you're going to be down the road. So what is the 50-30-20 rule? It's pretty easy, pretty straightforward, right? Basic in principle, but it does take some dedication and some consistency for it to work. Again, the better you can become at budgeting now, the easier it will become once more and more responsibilities come your way. While these are not all the items that'll fill your buckets, you can get an idea of kind of where each bucket kind of resides, but also how they could swell over time, right? If rent or food or transportation is increasing over time, that needs bucket just is taking more of that take-home money itself. Wants always get bigger, right? As new things come out, if it's the latest and greatest technology or just something cool, sometimes we got to have it. So sometimes those wants can be increased or decreased depending on what's going on. Savings, we always want to see those increasing more and more, but we understand that we got to save at some point, and some saving is better than no savings. So, and again, the sooner we can get on board with that, the easier it becomes. Foundation. So this is your needs. So think of this, so before we can determine anything really, we need to know how much money we're starting each month with. And what that can mean is two things. It can either be all of your, whether you're working, so it could be your take home, so your after tax income, or it could be things like your tuition, money from home, anything like that. We got to find out what that big amount of money is before I can really start divvying it up into these three different buckets itself. Needs being our foundation, that's 50%. So 50% of our monthly income is really going to be towards these specific expenses. Housing and utilities. We all know housing is expensive, and it continues to get more and more expensive. Same thing with all of our utilities. So those are kind of, think of these as, this is your basic needs of everyday life, the essentials, right? Food and transportation, we got to eat, I should say, but we also got to go places, whether that's to school, to our job, to friends' houses, right? We have to be able to live, have to have a little fun, but we got to pay for that sometimes, and that could be through a myriad of different avenues, whether it's your own car, a bus, you're buying an e-bike, or you're even paying for, a spin bike or a lime ride, anything like that. You also have your guys' essentials, right? Whether it's healthcare, if you have any visa fees that pop up, or just any kind of fee in general. I think those are kind of big things that can pop up out of nowhere sometimes, and it's just how to have it on your radar so that if and when it comes, you're ready for it. You already have it set aside. As that green box is saying, really prioritize these expenses, right, to maintain your basic lifestyle, because that's going to be kind of your again, foundation, where you're going to build everything off of. Because again, the other side is you want to make sure you guys are focused on your schooling so that while you're here, you're not worried about anything else. Does anyone have any questions? Nothing too crazy so far? Okay. So now we'll go into the wants. You got to enjoy life, enjoy your experience, right? So exploring Fort Collins, getting out, getting to really see what the area has to offer. Many options are out there that are no cost to low cost, but also think at the end of the day, do we want to live to work or work to live? And I think that's one big thing that we got to make sure we're staying true, is that having fun is a big part, but we can't overthink it, right? And so how do we make sure that these don't swell too big? Because it does happen, right? Like we were talking about earlier, something new comes out, that's a want. How do we adjust for that? Does that mean, are we going to pay less of our rent? No, but it may mean that the groceries I'm going to buy may be a little bit less expensive. I need to make that adjustment somewhere, because if I don't, I may be spending more money than I actually have, and then we're creating a really bad behavior that we don't want to get down, right? So it is a slippery slope, because we do have those wants that can slip into needs. And this could be due to something that you need, right? Is a true need. If I have a hobby that brings me a ton of mental joy, right? Always a mental health thing. That can be something that may move into more of a need, just on the sole fact of it brings you a clarity, a way of escaping everyday life in a good, positive way. Those can sometimes creep into those needs. But when you really think about it, a majority of the fun stuff, we'll say, really does pertain to the wants. So kind of keeping this in the 30% range is great, because this does give you a lot of options, but you're also not spending a majority of your money just on what you want to do. There's also got stuff that you need to do, right? And so that's where that 50% earlier, where your kind of life essentials comes to play. Last bucket, this is our savings. Save, save, save. The sooner you can get in the habit of saving, the more financial freedom you'll honestly have. I'll even say the more mental freedom you'll have with it, right? During those tough times, or when an unexpected expense pops up, right? We'd like to say we have a crystal ball and we can see into the future and nothing bad's going to happen, but we all know that that's not true. And so the more we can have set aside already, it makes those tough times not as tough. And it's less things that you may have to put on, say, like a credit card. Not that they're bad, but the less that you have to pay someone else, the better it can be. So that's kind of one thing that you always got to make sure that is in the back of your mind. There's many ways that you can obviously save, many different outcomes in terms of how much money you can earn, right? Because savings are typically money that you're going to be earning interest on, most likely. That can depend, and I should say this, depending on the type of savings, can really determine two things. One, the overall risk, but then two, how much money you'll gain and how fast. And what I mean by risk is you'll see the third option there by investment. Investments can be great. The hardest part with them is they are not guaranteed money. So you could potentially lose 100% of whatever you put into an investment. So the hard part with those is how do we weigh the risk reward? Are we risky enough that we're earning a good amount, but are we safe enough that it's just not going to go away in one bad kind of investment, so to speak? Starting from the top down, though, the 20% of our monthly take home, right? So the first one, got to have emergency fund. This is those unexpected costs, whether it's emergency, medical, it could be a flight delay, right? We get delayed going home, so now we got to do something different just to get there. That's what this could do. Same thing with a family need. If we need to help our family back home or even locally, that's what that can be there for. The second one, high yield savings. So the biggest part of this one is really going to be more high yield is really just telling you off the gate that it's going to be giving you more interest. It's earning more interest on the balance that it's going to have. Those can be great because if you have any extra money hanging out at the end of the month, put it into a separate account. Then it's not allowing you to spend it just on frivolous things that you may not need to. So again, having a separate savings account, giving you that ability to stash money away, so to speak. I know we talked about investment, but we'll touch on it again. Professor Paul does suggest those low-cost index funds because, again, they are stable, fairly low-risk investments that can give you usually better interest earned than you would say at like a normal savings account would be from any bank or credit union. Last one, retirement planning. So this may be more like down the road, but things to think about, right? Because we don't want to be working the rest of our life until we're on our deathbed. We want to be able to enjoy our fruits of labor. And so having the future thought of saving for the future, not only for the immediate, but for the long term, right? So whether it's a 401k or whether I'm doing it on my own, right? So I may get out of school post-graduation, I may get into a profession with a company that does do a 401k match. Fantastic, let's take advantage of the free money. But some don't. And so that's where there is still other options that you can do on your own that can still provide that retirement option for you. That way you're not having to work further into your life where you can really be more enjoying those fruits of labor. Any questions at all? Okay. So how do we start? Well, like we were talking about earlier, we got to be able to calculate that net income. So that's your take home, your after-tax income if you're working each month. That's the amount we must use to kind of fill those three different buckets. So that income could be part-time earnings. So if you're a part-time employee or a full-time, you could be full-time and as well as going to school full-time. Scholarships, anything that you're getting from those, grants, anything like that. Family support, so if family's sending you money for anything, whether it's little amounts, large amounts, if it's monthly or if it's spread out, how can you then spread that out, so to speak? I see the question about just on the back one, so I'll cover that real quick. So more about high yield savings in terms of deposits. So high yield savings, it is more of a buzzword, I'll give you this. So you'll also hear these term called money markets. These typically are higher yield savings accounts. So what this all it means is it's a savings account that typically will be paying, and this is the hardest part, is they are going to be based on each individual institution, but typically they're just a higher paying interest account. More often than not, though, they are going to have a little bit more restrictions with them. So you may have a restriction is typically only going to be when you're taking money out. In terms of the deposit, you can throw as much money in those typically as you want. Whether it's a savings account, there's also other options that are called CDs or a certificate of deposit. Those are essentially an account you can put money into, can't touch it at all, but it will earn a guaranteed interest on it. So those can give you kind of another different vehicle to save your money that's not necessarily investments, but it's a guaranteed interest on top of that itself. So you can kind of structure it, and honestly, we do recommend that. So you have something that's a little bit more liquid, or meaning I can take more from it more frequently, but I may have something that's a little bit more time that I can't touch, but I am getting that interest back itself. So high yield savings, it depends on the institution in terms of like how long they're going to be that higher interest for, if there's a minimum balance requirement. Um, Most of the time, they'll probably have at least a minimum balance requirement. They're usually higher, what I mean by higher is that I've seen anywhere between $500 to $1,000 minimum that have to be in those accounts. Um, for example, our accounts, you do have to have $1,000 to start them, and then we give you the option to lock it at a certain percent interest rate at either a 3 month or a 6 month. Not all institutions do that. Some are just a flat interest rate. Some are also tiered, and what that means is if there's a certain balance in there, you'll get a certain payout on interest. But if you go over that balance, you may be paid either a higher interest or a lower interest. It just depends. And typically you should be given those when you open those type of accounts. CDs can be short term. I mean, honestly, we have some that are honestly like I have a 3 month option right now. If you really wanted it, it's there. But you can structure it again where it's a 3, 7, 27, or really however you want. We call that laddering. That's a different method for saving specifically with CDs, so that you actually will have more of like a short term, mid term, long term that are all expiring at a little bit different times, but you're able to take advantage of a little bit different interest rates depending on what's going on in the economy itself. So I hope that gives you the answers you're looking for. So perfect question though. I love that, because high yield savings, at the end of the day, you want free money. We all want it. So if you aren't in a high yield savings account, look into it. Look to see if there's a minimum requirement. If you can't get to that, let's find a way to get there, or at least have that on like the goal to get there. Because the more you can get on saving, or the more you can earn on interest, it's free money at the end of the day. Why not take it? So kind of going back to budgeting, we calculated our income. It's all the net income, so it's after taxes if we're working. Otherwise, scholarships, family support, tax-free, can't hate that. But that's where we're going to start our bucket, kind of start to fill our buckets from there. So then we're going to start tracking it. So this can be done a couple different ways. There's a ton of apps out there now that you literally can log into you'll log into your bank account using like your online access. Completely okay, completely secure. Because what they do is they'll then use that data to analyze what you're actually spending it on. A lot of the apps now are actually really cool, and they'll actually show you stuff. So you'll see full-on graphs of, okay, you're spending 52% of your money at McDonald's. It's like, oh, okay, that's a trigger right there that I need to slow it down a little bit. Or it could be that I'm not spending a whole lot of money, and I'm like, oh wow, I have a lot of extra money left over. I could do something with that, whether it's saving. I could, maybe I need to buy something new for school, or maybe get something a little bit different because it'll work out better for me. Who knows? That's what it's there for. The other way you could honestly do it, it's the old-fashioned way. Make a spreadsheet, get a piece of paper, write them down. Sometimes that can be a little bit more, not unnerving, but you feel a little bit more of it, if that makes sense, because you're physically writing it down. It's like taking notes. Sometimes you can remember something better if you write it down. Same thing. It allows you to really kind of get a grasp of where you're spending your money, how much you're spending of your money, and really if you do to make those adjustments. Like the next one says, adjust the categories. They're not set in stone in the sense of how much money, but it's the percentage, right? So if I'm spending more of my want money than I should be, that means something else is affected. Chances are it's not my needs being affected, because we're all going to pay our rent and our electricity so we can still live. But then it means I'm not going to be able to save. And so sometimes we just need to make those adjustments, because once you have that snapshot, you'll be able to see where that money is going, and if we need to make those adjustments. Because the hardest part is that's when we really figure out if we're living above our means, within our means, or below our means. There's no judgment in any of the three, but how do you adjust it if you are over? because you don't want to be living above your means, because then you're spending more money that you have and creates a bigger issue than you want to be. Last one on this one, be flexible. That's the biggest part, is there are some times where you're going to have a fluctuation in expenses. It's just how it is, right? Whether it's fluctuation in prices of things, just the fluctuation of life, right? There's going to be some times where I have a certain bill that comes out once a month, but I may have one that comes out every 3 months because it's a quarterly bill. Those can just fluctuate the budget every month to every quarter. So you just have to be aware of those things. But also if there's an increase in something, right? If I'm coming up for a renewal on my rent and I'm doing a new lease and I found out, oh, now my rent's an extra $150 a month, I need to calculate that now into my new budget. And so what does that mean? Does that mean I need to reduce some of my wants in my save? Hopefully not. But it could also mean like I need to start either getting more money in or start working a different job. And that's not a bad thing. We all got to make ends meet at the end of the day. Hopefully it's something that you like, but at the end of the day, we got to make sure that we're covering our bases and making sure we're able to live. Any questions on those ones? Ultimately, this is the hardest one because you do have to start somewhere, but it's the first step. Once you do it, it makes it a lot easier. And the beautiful thing is it's not set in stone, right? So you can always come back to this, always look like, oh yeah, I forgot, like I do have this one that comes up, right? Every 3 months I have one bill. It's trash. For whatever reason, they do it quarterly instead of monthly. Every quarter I got to remember, okay, that's going to come out. All right. So some tips for you guys. Separate accounts. So whether it's separate banks, but really the bigger part is the separation of spending accounts versus a savings account. Having them separate, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to cost you anything to have, but having it is key because then it gives you the ability to put it into savings. Because again, if you don't have the account already set up, how are you going to save the money? Are you going to put it in the mattress? I hope not. While it is funny sometimes, the downside to leaving cash out is the hardest part with cash is it is completely vulnerable to anything outside of its environment, right? So it can be lost, it can get stolen, it can get ripped, it can be caught on fire. And the downside is if it's lost, you may not be able to get it back. So that's why while we love to have cash around, putting it in a bank does help because then it at least keeps it safe from any of those basic harms, but also from theft. Hopefully we don't run into any of those. CSU has a ton of stuff, not only online, on campus. Obviously, like I said, we're here. Even if you're not a customer, we have a wealth of knowledge that we can give you guys, whether it's little booklets that we have that kind of go over credit cards, what credit looks like, to even just like, hey, I need help doing my budget. Awesome, come on in. Like, I'll honestly sit down with you and show you how your budget works and how to better where you're at. That's what we're here for. We want to be that resource. Tax planning. So this is whether if you're working already or just down the road, planning for taxes can be a pain, but it's just more of being aware of it. There's a ton of softwares out there. There's also people. So think of it this way. You're either going to pay for a software or a person to do your taxes. But the better you can get an idea of where to start, the better it's going to be. Tax is just one of those inevitable things that we have to deal with at least once a year. Small business owners, unfortunately, you got to deal with it more often, but it's what it's there for. Last but not least, just diversifying. Do it wisely. So obviously, you'll see crypto is a big thing lately. Meme coins, those are the other ones. Meme stock for your day trader. You'll hear it like Acorn or Robinhood. These are great platforms. Same thing with crypto. They are great. They have a purpose. The biggest thing that I just want to really land is a lot of risk because they aren't they're basically they're I look at it like art. They're always based on whatever the market's going to value it at. So if the market says, "Yep, I'm going to value it high," it'll be high. But the minute that it starts to lose that, it'll go down. So the beauty with crypto is it's the coolest, newest thing out there. I think blockchain will bring a lot of good things to the industry, but there is just an innate risk in it, so you can lose money in it. So it's just the biggest part with this is just be cautious. Don't put all your money in it. It is like gambling, so you want to be smart with it. It's got to be money that you'd be willing to lose regardless if you won or not. But you got to be safe. You got to be cautious. Nothing too crazy, but it's out there. So some other common challenges and solutions that do pop up for students, especially if we're either going back home or we're going on a vacation and we have to use a foreign currency. Currencies fluctuate in prices, so just knowing what those exchange rates can be, they do vary. Doing a basic Google search, unfortunately, isn't your best friend. It'll give you an idea, but it won't give you the on the dot money at all. So just kind of be aware. Great idea to give you a ballpark figure, but don't bet on it. Unexpected expenses. Again, that's why we talk about that 20% cushion of your take home money, making sure that if that unexpected expense pops up, you have money or most of the money set aside so that you're not freaking out and having to ask money from someone else or put it on a credit card or whatever that may be. I see the question on what other banks are good to use for savings. Appreciates you already having one with FNBO. Really, any bank out there. 9 times out of 10, they will show you what they offer on their web pages. I'm a little biased in the sense of I think FNBO offers everything great, but I do also know that we're not the only bank out there, and there are a lot of banks in town. I think one thing I look for in just banks in general is what kind of experience do I get when I walk in? What kind of experience do I get online? Because online is important. But the other thing is how easy it is for me to get there, right? So if I'm on campus or close to campus, I want to make sure that I can actually get there and talk to someone if something happens, or if I just have a question. Sometimes it's a lot easier to do that versus either calling or doing a chat bot. Sometimes those can just be more headache than good. But yeah, I mean, credit unions would be the same thing. They offer the same similar things. They just have different names for them, most likely. But I would say any of the banks that are close to campus are offering really good stuff right now. All right, so going back, social pressure. So this is where I do kind of lean into if everybody's doing it, do I need to do it? If it's something you want to do, like at the end of the day, you're an adult, you're your own person, you got to live your life. But if we have our long-term goals in mind, we know that this one small short-term purchase really isn't going to do it for me, and maybe I'll be off, I'd be better off not doing it. Those are just things you got to kind of just keep in mind. But what I also want to stress is don't let life pass you by just to make sure that you save a little bit. You got to live a little, have the experiences. That's what life's all about. But you can have both. You can have your cake and eat it too. You can have some fun, but also have your long-term goals in mind so that you can continue to enjoy life even further down the road itself. Expert help, like there's student financial advisors out here. We offer financial advice to people. It's out there. I think CSU does a great job at getting people resources that they need. Sometimes it's just not easy to know about them, but they are out there. I do promise you. Any questions pop up, again, I'm always here. We're there for you. Last but not least, just kind of in summary, your financial journey does start now. I mean, you guys are in the thick of a new journey in life. The easier you can make those decisions now, just the better off you'll be. Last thing you want to do is make some crazy idea or crazy decision that just, it won't ruin your life, I promise you, but it'll make you'll learn. But the sooner you can kind of hop on these type of methods or or ways of saving, ways of budgeting, ways of doing banking, really the less stress you'll have. I think that's the big one that I always want to land is if you're able to know where your money's at, how your money's working for you, then you can really start to just more enjoy life and focus on that part and focus on school, and not really much anything else. And so, like it says there, start simple. It's not a skill, or it's not. There's not a restriction. It is a skill. So just like any other skill, right? The more you do it, the better you get at it, and you'll be able to really kind of almost predict some of the things coming in, and you're like, oh wait, I know next month this is going to happen, so I'm going to skip doing this and make sure I save a couple extra bucks here. Even cutting down, I was reading a thing the other day that if you go from 5 days a week getting a coffee to 2 days a week, that can save you over almost $1,000 a year. Is it a huge amount? No, but $1,000 is $1,000, and that can make a little bit every month feel a little bit less pressure, and that can be the big thing, right? So staying consistent, that's another one, right? Live well today, but save for tomorrow. We want to live, make sure we're having fun, but have that long-term end goal. Know your resources, right? CSU has them. We're here for you. There's no dumb question, I promise you. The only thing I'd say is any question not asked is a question not answered, right? You get 100% of what you don't ask for, and we're here for it. So you can take control of your finances and make your international experience thrive. That's what we're here for. So any questions, let me know. Let's check.
There's a couple in the chat.
Yeah, okay. So investment strategies. So they are all great questions. A majority of, so yes, you guys can do crypto. It will come down to if you have your social or not. So your social security number. If you don't, then that's where you're not allowed to, because we do have the capital gains tax that would be hit with those. And the way we track it through the U.S. system is through our social security numbers. So if you don't have one, that is where it can be a little bit complicated. But I would also say that depending on your home country, you may be able to trade in your home country. It just depends. A little bit more restrictions on that side as well. Same thing with Forex. That's kind of the other avenue that people will start to explore is kind of making money on foreign exchange or foreign currency exchange, basically on the exchange rates. You're buying some at some rate, and hopefully that the rate goes up and you make money on the difference. That can definitely do it. It just kind of really depends on if you have your social or not. That's really going to be, I would say, the best. That's going to be your biggest hurdle first, before you kind of get into anything.
And
In
Nicholas,
terms,
I
yeah,
also just want to add, because I don't know the legality of this, and so I feel like it could be a good question for one of our immigration advisors, because I think students may be able to passively make income off of crypto, but not
mhm,
actively, because that may be considered like employment income kind of,
exactly.
which is not necessarily legal for them. So I would
Yep,
definitely talk to one of our international advisors more specifically if you have questions about something like that.
perfect. Apps. So there's a couple different ones. I'll give you guys two different ones. One is One's called Pocket Guard. So it gives you kind of a snapshot of what you're doing. I like that one a lot. The other one, um, it's called Good Budget. So this is Good Budget will actually use, um, it's an envelope budgeting method. So it's the same idea. Just instead of having a bucket, you have an envelope. More or less the same thing, but it's just that. So you have different envelopes that you're putting money into each week, each month, each day, whatever you want. If you've ever heard of Dave Ramsey, this is a similar app, I guess you could say, around what he would teach. But it's the same idea where you're putting a portion of your monthly income towards a specific category, and that's what each envelope is. You can get super granular with it. So if you want to say, like, I only want to spend X amount of dollars eating out, I can do that, versus it just being my want bucket. Or I can just be an overall want bucket, and this is how much I want to put into that, and then I kind of conceptually keep track of what those wants are. So you can get really down in the weeds if you really want to. It just depends kind of how much you want to see, really. What other questions you guys got? Okay, well, if that's it, thanks for having me. Very much
Yeah, thank you
appreciated.
so much, Nicholas, for presenting. Thank you to our students for attending. We really appreciate you doing this. This is going to be recorded, and we'll be sharing this on our resources page later. But we really appreciate you providing all this information, Nicholas.
Absolutely. And like I said, if you have any questions, I'm in the LSC Monday through Friday. My whole team is. So if any questions pop up, you guys are more than welcome to stop in. Be happy to help you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.